Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina. Let's go straight to the Big 12 standings. Here's where we are at the end of the weekend with Oklahoma on top. That sure wasn't easy at home against UCF. Texas right there in a tie with Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Iowa State. They've all kind of like where they are at 3-1. That sure wasn't easy in Houston either. Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon, Kansas State, 400 yards rushing. Iowa State had the off week, and then, of course, the rest of the Big 12 conference.
Yeah, Oklahoma got a scare. Everybody at the top except for Michigan has had one, though. And I'm sure we'll talk at length about Michigan in a second for other reasons. But Oklahoma fought through. But I think if you really look at teams at the top, and Texas had their scare and fought through. So if they wind up being the Big 12 champion later on, they'll show they can do it. Ohio State's had a couple of tight games. Florida State's had some tight games. Washington had a tight game. Oregon's had tight games. Georgia's had tight games. So
we're going to get to the top 25 in a moment. Yes.
But teams are winning tight games. Oklahoma showed that they can do that here, not have their best game, and ward off somebody who was extremely motivated to do that. So, yeah, my opinion didn't change much about Oklahoma, although I am a little worried about their running game.
Yeah, a lot of interesting results this past weekend. I think the thing that jumps out to me talking about the Big 12 was just how close the new schools were to having a monumental weekend and knocking off the two Blue Bloods and ruining their national championship hopes in Texas's case. And dinging Oklahoma's playoff hopes in their case, but instead those two remain as is and pack on another win. But I just think a massive missed opportunity for UCF and Houston, and one that's going to really linger with them. Not that they won't, still turn around this week and play well and regroup and be fine, but I just think that that's one that you'll always look back on and be like, man, if we could have had that win, particularly Houston. I just think that with the setting and everything that was going on there, being a home game that they'll never probably have again of that type, that was, man, so close. And, man, what a win for, Texas and Oklahoma to, like Paul said, get those close games behind them, and I'm sure there will be more like that moving forward, although those number of games are dwindling down now at this point. I mean, we're nearly in the final month. We'll be in the final month after the end of this week.
Absolutely.
Which kind of sucks. I mean, that it's going by this fast, but, I mean, those weren't just the other two stories. I know throughout the week we'll get into more of these games individually because they're all different stories themselves, but Oklahoma State remains very impressive, and Ollie Gordon is just a fun player to watch running the football. It's a big dude, hard to bring down, lots of burst, and just a tough guy to wrangle at the moment for Big 12 defenses. And he's got the Cowboys, right there in that second tier behind the Sooners and Longhorns as far as teams that could be competing to try and, make a little noise and do something here down the stretch. Obviously, K-State with a massive statement. What an awful loss for TCU. That Sonny Dykes said, he was completely blindsided by and wasn't expecting, but geez Louise, they got torn to shreds by the Wildcats, who managed their two-quarterback system really well. West Virginia starting to flounder, so yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on.
Absolutely, there is. 343 yards rushing by Kansas State in their win against TCU. Gordon has now had over 500 in the last couple of weeks. BYU up at home in Provo, 5 turnovers for Texas Tech. They dropped to 3-5. And just a couple of weeks ago after they won at Baylor, you thought maybe they had turned the corner. They haven't. And then Baylor passing the ball to set up the run game. Like, who would have ever thought that? And it wasn't easy for them either in the win against Cincinnati on the road. But they had a great, great day when it comes to special teams. All right, this Saturday in Lawrence, Kansas. Guess who will be there? Oklahoma and Kansas. It's also the Fox Big Noon Kickoff. How about that? In Lawrence, Kansas, Fox Big Noon Kickoff in a game that I think is going to be very high scoring and maybe a 35-30 type of game before it's said and done.
Yeah, Jalen Daniels going to play?
Nope.
Then, I mean, it's just, God, it sucks that he's hurt. Because he is, in my opinion, the most fun quarterback to watch in the Big 12 when he's healthy. But he's not going to play. Jason Bean's filled in admirably, but that's good news for Oklahoma because they're already going into a place that all of a sudden is confident that they might be able to beat you. Whereas for years, if you had just told any of their fans, like, hey, you got a shot to beat Oklahoma, they'd be like, I have a number of a guy you can call if you're having problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's always possible, I guess, that, these injury reports don't really mean anything. There's, it's not like you put them on there and they can't get off there. So these updates early in the week don't necessarily mean that he won't make some surprise appearance, because we've seen that before. But just based on today, the word out there from Lance Leipold is that he's optimistic, but that Jalen Daniels is doubtful to return. So, again, you could see the progress that's being made. He's doing more in practice, as that says there, but not likely he'll play. Again, there's always a surprise factor. But, yeah, overall it is certainly dampened the spirit of just the excitement level around Kansas football, I think, to at least some extent, because it's not quite what it could be with that difference maker at quarterback. All due respect to Jason Bean, he can win you games, but he's not Jalen Daniels, who helped bring the program back from the ashes and made them competitive and interesting last year. So yeah, that stinks, but a good opportunity for Lawrence, Kansas to host an event like that, and maybe there's a little magic in the air. We'll see.
All right, and then on top of a quarterback news, the news on Saturday that Quinn Ewers suffered a grade 2 AC joint in his right shoulder, expected to miss some time. Malik Murphy came in, and they also used red a lot in the Wildcat to pick up the big third or fourth down and short type runs as well. Not season ending, but this is also Quinn Ewers, who, remember last year early when he was knocked out in the game against Alabama. So at least that puts a little bit of a quirk, although Malik Murphy, incredibly talented, not the accurate thrower that Ewers is. And yet he now is under the fire of being the starting quarterback in Austin.
He's also never played, really.
That's true.
So,
yeah.
that's to me, the Malik Murphy's a superb athlete. Like, he wasn't, the number 2 or 3 quarterback recruit in the country or whatever he was, because he won a spelling bee. I mean, he's really good, talented athletically, but he has not played. He spent most of the year last year injured. Through the spring, really was injured as well. So you haven't really seen that much of Malik Murphy at all. And so my question for Texas would be, say Quinn Ewers is out next week against Kansas State, which most of the time with shoulders and AC joints is at least 2 or 3 weeks. So they've got BYU this week, a team that's going to play really tough. Kind of violent attitude that they have. And then they've got Kansas State, who's a good team, a pretty darn good team that is going to play physical and come after you. And I would say take some chances on a young quarterback. How mature can Malik Murphy get to play within himself right now? Because they're going to lose some things that they do with Quinn Ewers that he's not going to do because he's not ready to do that. So I think they'll probably be fine because of what they have around him. But in those close games, does he have the moxie yet to quiet the noise and do what's got to be done?
Yeah, Quinn Ewers is a really good player, so that's a tough loss. I mean, that's your guy. That was your guy. And he's now out for, like you said, the unknown amount of time moving forward, but it sounds like it'll be at least a game, if not a couple of games. And, yeah, that puts them in quite the pickle. I don't put them necessarily right on upset watch at home against BYU this week, but I think you have to put the meter up a little bit. I wouldn't put it off in the red necessarily like I might against Kansas State, depending on what we see this weekend. But, I mean, you got to be aware that it's certainly a possibility. I don't know if BYU can ultimately score enough and do things like that in the end, but they can if they pick off Malik Murphy a couple times. They can if they get some turnovers. And so, yeah, it's going to boil down to how well he plays, and what a great opportunity for a guy who's been waiting his turn, and now will have his turn. And again, haven't seen a lot, but this is the moment you've been waiting for, so go out there and show it. And we might be walking away, come this time next week going, dang, Malik Murphy needs to play.
Yep.
For all we know, he could be the second coming. We just haven't seen enough yet. But to see him actually go out there and have to engineer drives and start a game off and do all the little things that aren't just, backup time here and there will be, really enlightening. And, of course, there's the underlying storyline of Arch Manning as well, and the fact that he'll now be QB2 while Quinn Ewers is hurt. So he's right there in the thick of things to potentially play and make his college debut. So that'll be a very interesting situation to watch. And, this is a situation now, too, where Texas, can't afford a second loss. I mean, they can in terms of the Big 12 for the moment, but as far as playoff hopes go, that is a major part of this Ewers injury. Is okay, can they, get the job done while he's out and, keep them above water, so if he does return there at the end of the year, they're still in the same position as when he left.
All right, so, yeah, Malik Murphy's thrown 8 passes Ewers throws 213 plus, played most of last year too, but an incredibly gifted young man. We'll see what happens. Also,